Hello, and welcome to another edition of the C Squared podcast. This is your host, Curtis, with my co-host, Aaliyah, and we are here today with Barbara Blackthorne of the band Empress, and she is joining us today to talk about her music, her social media, upcoming music maybe a little bit, and a whole host of other topics. So yeah, thank you for joining us, Barbara.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome. So very first question we always ask everybody when we first start out with them is to give us a brief nutshell version of who you are and what you do.
Sure. So I sing for, as you mentioned, a symphonic power metal band called Empress. I have a classical background that I did eventually transition over and use that technique into singing metal. In addition to being a metal singer, I also really enjoy fashion, specifically alternative and Gothic fashion, which I kind of explore a bit on my Instagram. Yeah.
Leah, you want to do the next one?
Yeah. So you mentioned that you're classically trained. Can you take us a little bit like the Cliff Notes journey through your musical journey?
Sure. Yeah. So as a teenager, around, like my early teens, I kind of played around a little bit in bands and that kind of thing. And one time I was invited to sit in at a classical choir. And of course, being like the angsty 15-year-old that I was like too cool for that. And I sat in and everybody was so nice to me. And I remember this one girl that had this amazing, rich, like mezzo soprano voice. And she sang next to me. And I was like, I want to sound like that. So I started studying classical training right after that. Did that for about 4 years. Right as I was about to enter conservatory, I got vocal cord nodules due to laryngeal pharyngeal reflux, which is like a specific reflux that kind of goes more towards the like vocal cord area. So I got vocal cord nodules because of that. Took a brief sabbatical from singing for about 3 years. Did voice rest about 3 months to get it back, as well as voice therapy. And then at that point, it's too late for conservatory and to pick up my classical studies. So I was like, well, I've always loved metal. I'm just going to go full force into this. And it was kind of cool because I was able to take what I had known about classical singing and apply it in a metal capacity and start like growling, belting, all that kind of stuff.
So kind of as a follow-up to that, you kind of briefly went into this, but what were you working on before you joined Empress?
So before I joined Empress, I was in a band for 6 months. It was like a traditional heavy metal kind of thing.
Nice.
Yeah, it was cool. I feel that for both of us, we both kind of agreed that it wasn't the best fit. So I moved on from there. I did almost like a pop rock kind of thing that I got invited to join. That was an interesting experience. And
Nice.
Then I took a break for about 2 years, just because, again, I didn't feel musically fulfilled. Then when Vlad, the guitarist from Empress, he reached out to me and he sent me what would become Black Arcana. I heard that and then I was immediately like, okay, I'm going to go full force into this. So
Nice. So are you willing to say what the band was or no?
yeah. So the first one was a band from the Trenton area called Metalheads, and the second band was a band called Ravenspell, which I think is now no longer operating.
Okay, cool. I had a follow-up to that and I just blanked on it. I'm sorry. Aaliyah, I guess you got the next one. I'll think of it at some point.
All right then. What was the like promo cycle like when you've released 4 singles at this point? Right? I think that's correct. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so what has that been like, releasing singles, and like what has the promo cycle been like?
So it's been super interesting because those first 3 singles that we put out, we did it 2019, which is right when we announced the band. We wanted to come right out the gate with things that people could be a fan of. So we wanted to make sure that we had like a lyric video, music video, visualizer for Legion. Those were actually demos. And the idea was that we just wanted, again, to get our foot in the door, introduce us to the world, say, hi, we're Empress, new music coming out. At the time, the plan was to have them professionally re-recorded along with the rest of our material for an early 2020 release. And we know what happened there. So we kind of took up 2020 for various reasons. Obviously, the pandemic. I actually had some health issues of my own that kind of took me out of the game for a little bit. which was fantastic timing with the world pandemic. And, but, we came back from that beginning of 2021, kind of with like this fresh, renewed like energy, being like, we want to finish this, we want to get this out there. So yeah, it was interesting because that promo cycle for those first 3 singles was very strong. We had a lot of interest, a lot of hype. It kind of got, squashed a little bit the last couple years. And then last year we were able to come back, say like, hey guys, we're still alive, we're still here. And then we put out Maid of Orleans, which is a cover of a band I really, really love called Darkmoor. So yeah, the promo cycle has been super interesting and weird for them just because it was like start, stop, and then start up again.
So how are you promoting it? Are you just doing self promo or using PR? Like, how are you doing it?
So we had outside promo for Beyond the Sleep.
Okay.
But honestly, most of it's just been us. A lot of it's just been hitting social media as hard as we can, hitting Facebook groups, just trying to like word of mouth. Yeah, it's really just been like us, running YouTube ads, Facebook ads, whatever we can do to get the word out there. And reception's been pretty positive.
Aaliyah, are you okay if we go into social media for a few minutes, or do you want to wait? Okay.
Sure, go ahead.
Cool. So Barbara, let's talk about social media for a few minutes here. So you primarily use Instagram, correct?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So how does using your personal account, do you think, get people to listen to the band?
Oh, it's huge. Honestly, like it's funny, like I mentioned to you a little bit before, that the algorithm loves faces. So for me, just putting my face out there, putting more of my personality out there, I think what happened is that, some people might follow me because they know me from Empress, but I feel like a lot of people don't. I feel like a lot of people that initially followed me, it's because of the fashion and the makeup that I post over on my Instagram. And then I do like to write quite a bit in my captions. I want to give people a chance to get to know me. And outside of like the usual, like, hey, it's weather outside, what do you think about this? I try to make it more like, just what's on my mind. If I feel compelled to write something that might help somebody, that's like a really big thing for me. So yeah, I feel like with that combination of factors of just the visual aspect, but then people feeling like they get to know me that way, it makes them more likely to want to say like, okay, well, what does she do? I know she sings. And that trickle down has been really huge for getting people to check out Empress.
So I have a dumb question, and answer it as best as you possibly can. So like I had asked you, were you in modeling or something beforehand? Do you get that a lot? And how do you kind of use that to get people towards the band as well, out of curiosity?
Yeah. So it's funny, I do get asked that a lot. It was funny, that's actually what got me to start doing that, was I had gotten asked a bunch in my life if I modeled, if I was interested in modeling. And I was always kind of like, it felt for me, not that I think modeling is vain or shallow or anything like that, but for me personally, I felt like it would be weird to put myself out there in that way.
Sure.
So finally I kind of caved because I was just like, well, this could be a really strong promotional tool for the band that I'm not utilizing. And, I don't have to, I can have kind of control over my image in this way, in the way that I want to present myself to the world. So yeah, I have gotten asked that a lot. And in terms of doing it professionally, like I've thought about it, but the right opportunities haven't presented themselves. I've had people reach out, but it's just, again, I wanted to kind of fit with the branding, so to speak, that I'm presenting myself with.
Fair enough. No, that makes sense. Okay, so I do have another social media, but I wanted to see if Aaliyah had anything before I continue. I don't want to hog everything.
So I guess you mentioned branding, so I kind of want to dig into that. Like, so if you were to do like one of those summoning circles, summon me with 5 things, what would those 5 things be?
Yeah, I'm so sorry. The audio kind of cut down for me. I caught the last part of that question.
Yeah. There's like this meme that went around the forum where it's like, oh, this summoning circle will summon me.
Oh, yes.
Like, how would that, if you had to apply that to your brand, what would that be?
Oof. So if there were like 5 things, I would say bats, because they're adorable, and who doesn't love bats? I'd say bats. I would say makeup, like a Sephora gift card. I would say, that's obsidian, like the stone. I would say, I'd say Skyrim. um, and I would say just like maybe like a nice black skull or something like that. Just something super gothy and typical.
But I mean, all great things, all great things.
Right.
Specific.
So let's keep going on this social media topic for a minute here. Okay, so can you first go over how frequently do you post yourself? For
So
asking.
Usually like I try to keep on like at least 2 posts a week. I try to do Wednesday, Fridays. I was trying to do a makeup Monday for a little bit. I'm going to try to get back on that. I think with that, because that was a newer thing, it was a little easier to kind of fall off. So I put like a schedule for myself that I try to stick to. I hadn't worked that into like the written schedule I had put out for myself. So once I forgot one, it was easy to kind of lose track. But yeah, generally speaking, 2 posts a week, with trying to, do 3 in the future.
So how does Barbara, I guess, get all of her posts ready? Like how many pictures do you take in advance? Like, this is what I'm trying to ask you.
Yeah, so so generally speaking, we'll do like one like shoot a month, or maybe a few. Take a bunch of photos. The best ones that that we like are the ones that I'll try to space out, so that way I have a bunch of content that I can kind of use throughout the month, rather than like just blowing it all and like using it all in the first like week, or doing like a bunch of photos. Every now and then I'll make a post that has like 2 or 3 photos, but generally speaking, I do try to conserve what I have, because then it's also useful in the future for things like Flashback Fridays, which again is a great thing for content if you maybe don't have something to post, or again it's just a popular hashtag, so it's good to throw in there.
Cool. And then one last thing I want to go over with the branding / social media. Okay, so you mentioned that you are trying to focus more on like goth themes, but you play symphonic metal. So how do you get that to interlap here? I think it fits, but I'm just trying to get the method to the madness here, if there is one.
So I think with the goth stuff, I mean, that's kind of just me. Like I'd self-identify as like a metalhead. But at the end of the day, I think there is some crossover there with goth. I enjoy like gothy themed things, general goth subculture. So I think that for me, that's just naturally where I gravitate towards, just aesthetically and what have you. But I think that there is some crossover there with the symphonic scene. I think a lot of people who are into symphonic metal, especially, you have a lot of people there who enjoy gothic imagery, who enjoy gothic music. So I think that for them, when they find me, it's kind of like almost an easy fit to be like, okay, maybe they don't love power metal or some of the things that we do that way with Empress, but they might be able to find some other things that they like within that world.
Fair enough. I want to ask Aaliyah's take on this too, because she plays symphonic metal as well. Why is there a crossover between goth and symphonic?
Well,
since I got the both of you, I might as well ask the both of you, since you guys are both in bands.
I think it might have something to do with the instruments being used. A lot of Gothic subculture is attracted to like old cathedrals and things of that nature, and that's also the music that's associated with that imagery, is like old symphonic music compositions from olden times. And I think that people who are into Gothic subculture are just, I don't think I can formulate that thought. So Barbara, what do you think?
I think for me, I definitely agree with what you were saying. I was going to say the same thing. I think that the instrumentation is a huge part of it. I also think that goths in general, I don't want to speak for the whole subculture there, but I would say that I think that same with metal, we're a little avant-garde with the way we dress. And I think like very bombastic, very big music can appeal to people who are into that. That's just like, an educated guess.
Cool.
Yeah, I agree with that too, for sure.
Can I go one more question, Leah, before we get back on track?
Oh yeah, of course.
Cool. So all right, so Barbara, so how can you come across as very friendly, very friendly.
Thank you.
So how do I want to phrase this? But the goth subculture is supposed to be like, evil, spooky type thing. How do you kind of, I don't know, get the two things, you got the look, but you're still friendly. Do you know what I'm saying? How does the
Yes.
personality match with the image, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, it's funny. I've thought about this before. I think that for me, the
Mhm.
way I try to marry the two is like I always joke around, like I try to go for that like evil queen aesthetic. But
Yeah,
I think that it's almost like more like a benevolent evil queen, if that makes sense.
it does. It
Like an
does.
evil conqueror, but like she's good to her subjects kind of thing.
I can see that. Yeah, because I've always kind of wondered, like, because a lot of the times the gothic imagery and even the symphonic, it's like they want to come off as being very serious and
Mhm.
that, but most of the time it's like they're very friendly people. So just want to
Yes,
get
for sure.
I think we should probably get back on target, Leah?
Sure.
Cool.
You mentioned that you're working on an album. I know you can't tell us too much, but what can you tell us about the time frame? Is it completed? Like where you are in the process? What can you tell us?
Yeah. So I keep joking around. It's become like a running joke on my Instagram, but it's just soon. But I can say at the very least, I don't think that Peter will yell at me if I say that it's within this year. Before the end of the year, there will be an Empress album. I think that yeah, I mean it is completed. It's recorded. It's currently off at in the secret lab being worked on by somebody who I can't name just yet. But we're very, very excited to reveal that name eventually. But yeah, we're nearing the very end of this. So very, very soon.
Cool. So before Leah asks the next question, I got one more thing just to ask on this. Are you allowed to reveal the title or anything, or are we?
I would love to say the title. I can't wait till I say it, but I can't just yet. Just yet. Very soon.
Okay, fair enough. And then one other question, a quick question I had about it. So with the singles you've released, you started releasing them in 2019, I think it
Yes.
was. Right? So with like a 3-year build up, how does that really work? Because were you guys planning the album first, or was it the first thought was just release the singles and
Yeah, so with the singles, we just kind of wanted to like again just like introduce ourselves. The thought was to follow up those 3 singles with a 4th single at the beginning of 2020 and then album that late spring. So
Yeah.
that was the original plan. So again, the pandemic kind of changed everything and we had to kind of flip it all around. But yeah, this 3-year like a ramp up has been interesting because it was not anticipated or expected. And
Mhm.
it's been very frustrating, but at the same time, I think it's been really beneficial because it's kind of given us a little cushion, a little bit of a fan base to begin with.
That's actually a really good point. I mean, I never even thought about it that way. Are those songs going to be on the album too?
Yes. Yep, they've
Oh,
all been re-recorded and remastered, so they're definitely worth rechecking out for people who've already listened to them.
so again, sorry, Lee, I know I'm going off target here, and I'm doing my best not to. But so since they were all released in 2019, how is that going to affect your promo cycle for this year, or do you not know?
Yes, so we are planning on releasing 3 other singles. There is a chance that those we'll probably leave those songs up with just like a 2019 version kind of like little tag or something so people understand what they're listening to.
Fair.
But yeah, in terms of this promo cycle, there will be 3 new singles potentially, maybe.
Okay. So does that mean, and I'm assuming you can't say, but if you're allowed to say, does that mean that you're going to have released the majority of the album prior to releasing the album?
There will definitely be a good amount out there, but I do find that having more content is a good thing. I actually have had a friend recently who he released his album by doing like a single at a time
Yeah.
until the whole album's been released.
Yeah.
And I've seen that model be done before. So yeah, I think that at the end of the day, a lot of people are going to end up streaming it, but I think just more ways to get them familiar with it and interested in it, I think will prove beneficial in the end.
I agree. All right, I'm done, Leah.
So you brought up Peter's name. So I have to ask, we were curious, I know Curtis and I were both curious, how you got connected with Peter and his management.
Yeah. So it was funny for again in 2019, in the before times, when we only got to play a handful of shows before everything happened. So our third show ever, we played with Seven Spires at Bar 13, and he watched us, and I remember him coming up and talking to me after the show, and super complimentary, super sweet guy, and just like nothing but nice things to say. And I remember he was like, all right, well, how long have you guys been around? And we're like, oh, we just announced the band at the beginning of this year. And I remember he was shocked, and he was like, so wait, this is your third show? And when I confirmed it, he was very interested. So we stayed in contact, and then when he started managing bands, he reached out to us and he's like, I remember playing with you guys and I was impressed. So like, I'd love to manage you. And of course, like it was a very easy yes. So. But yeah, working with him and with Paul have been amazing. Like nothing but good things to say about both of them.
So now, do you think well, I mean, you said you got nothing but good things to say about it, but do you think on average, it's worth it for the average band at your stage to have a manager, out of curiosity?
I think that it's honestly, it's been super helpful. Like I think at this stage, if you're serious, if this is something you really want to pursue, beyond just like a hobby kind of thing, I think having management is necessary, because I think there's so many things to keep track of that, especially too, if you're not like, you don't have that professional background, it can be super overwhelming for a band. So I think for us, just having someone there, him and Paul working with us to manage a schedule, kind of guide us, and with the connections and things that they have access to that, again, if you're a band starting out, you wouldn't necessarily have. I think having management is absolutely a good thing for a band at that stage to have.
Fair enough. I mean, I also, part of the problem too is it's hard for bands to find a manager unless they're approached as well. But I mean, if you got the opportunity, for sure. What else do we want to ask about that, Aaliyah? Nothing?
I just want to, I guess I kind of want to affirm the fact that, like, obviously Shield of Wings, my band, we do not have professional management. So I know it's super overwhelming because I do most of that stuff and I can't do it to the degree that a professional manager would. So just wanted to affirm that, yeah, it is super overwhelming to do it all yourself. So if you can get a manager, that's great.
I do want to point out, though, you've done a fantastic job doing what you've done. I do want to shout you out on that. So let's see what I just clicked off my questions here. Oh, video games we're going to talk about. Aaliyah, you want to take over on the video games thing? I don't know anything about the video game thing.
Oh, that's good. Well, I noticed from it, your bios and like things that some other interview said that you guys are all really into video games, and some of that blends into your music. So what's your favorite video games? I know you mentioned Skyrim, which is like beautiful and has a great soundtrack.
Oh yeah. No, I'm huge into RPGs in general. Like I always say Skyrim because I know that that's the title that people would know, but I'm super into the Elder Scrolls as a series in general. My favorite title out of that series is Morrowind, but I mean, I haven't played Arena and Daggerfall, but the other three, love them. My favorite video game of all time is probably Dragon Age Origins. Just a very special game.
It's such a classic. I haven't played very many video games, but that one's so good.
Yeah, I know it's amazing. I love that game. I love the whole series. Gosh, what else? I love Mass Effect. Recently I played Pillars of Eternity, which was also fantastic. Oh yeah, and of course I'm forgetting Fallout. Fallout's a huge series for me. Love Fallout.
Oh, go ahead.
I had a follow-up on that. So how does that really tie into the music then, or does it not tie in with the music?
Yeah, no, honestly, I feel like my love of fantasy does inform a lot of my lyrics. Like I try to tell stories with our music. So I feel like Like there's one song in particular that that shall not be named, but it's definitely heavily influenced by one of those Elder Scrolls titles that I mentioned before. And yeah, just general like fantasy writing, that kind of thing. It definitely heavily like inspires me when I write.
Cool. I'll let Leah ask this final one.
Well, I mean, I didn't ask the second to final one, so
Oh, I thought
we're almost there. So on the video games topic, actually, it seems like there's quite a lot of crossover between Metalheads and video games. Like not every video gamer is into metal, but there is like quite a lot of crossover between the two. Why do you think that is? Like in the Venn diagram of metal and video games, what's there in the middle?
Honestly, I think we're just all a bunch of nerds in one way or another. I think that to be a metalhead, you have to be a nerd to like some degree, you know. I think it's just naturally the way of things with the genre. And I think that that can easily cross over into video games or just movies or just, I think that, you know, being a nerd, you can be a nerd about like anything, you know what I mean? But I think it just means like you're a very passionate person about the things that you enjoy. So I feel like if you're into metal, again, very passionate like fan base, video games, you know, fans also tend to be like super passionate. So I think that crossover is a pretty easy one to make at that stage.
And then finally, what is your favorite video game score?
Oof. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Skyrim before. I mean, that soundtrack, I mean, is just incredible. Like I've fallen asleep to it more times than I can count. I put on YouTube, they have those like Skyrim scenery. It's like 10-hour videos of just like people walking around with the soundtrack in the landscape. Yeah, it's super soothing, super magical. Yeah, I love it. It's probably my favorite OST.
Cool. Do we have any other questions for her, Leah?
I think we can wrap this up.
Cool.
Barbara, is there anything else that you want to share with our listeners before we wrap things up?
Sure. Yeah. So as I mentioned, we do have that super secret album that I can't mention, hint, hint, wink, wink, that will be out sometime soon. So to keep an eye on our socials for that. People can find us online at Empress Legion on Instagram, Facebook, all of your usual social media channels. We are playing a handful of shows. Currently, next Saturday, we're playing right here in Philadelphia in our home city, Dobbs. Then in May, we'll be playing with Mind Maze at Bar 13 in Delaware and Bastion's Wake. Super excited. And then we're super, super excited. In August, we'll be playing at Mad with Power Fest in Madison, Wisconsin. So yeah, that's what's going on in the world of Empress for people to keep an eye out for.
So awesome. Thanks again, Barbara, for coming on the show. And I hope I get to see you guys live soon. And with that, until next time, everyone, make like a bull and throw those horns up.